Hello, and welcome to this episode of Blockchain Bylines. My name is Nic Cary, the co-founder and vice chairman of blockchain.com. Today, I'm joined by Dave Garrett, the co-founder and CEO of dVIN Labs, a company pioneering the tokenization of investment-grade wine. Dave, welcome to the show. Shall we pop a bottle?
Sure, Nick, thanks.
My life can be really stressful. Sometimes work is intense. We got legal and regulatory things going on. We're growing a hyper-growth company, but today I get to talk about two of my favorite topics, the tokenization of all the things and also wine. And I did a little bit of research before we started this podcast today, and just to sort of remind myself of some of the interesting things that wine has brought culturally to the world. And a lot of people don't know this, but just like money predates human written word. Wine also predates human written word, and it's one of the sort of most oldest kind of cultural consumptive things we've have that we're aware of. And I'm so excited to dig in more to your interest in all of this. So tell us a little bit about what you brought here today.
Sure. So, well, I got a little heads up from a mutual friend of ours. Usually, like when I'm meeting with the blockchain people, I bring nice wine. But, Sadie told me that I needed to step up my game.
Oh, okay.
So I brought you some pretty good stuff today. So we've got, and I can talk a little bit later. Like later, I can tell you what Bacchus has to say about these wines, if you want. But for me, these are two of my favorites from Spain. So Viña Tondonia, which is from Rioja. It's a 150-year-old winery. These vines are probably 70, 75 years old. This is a 2007 vintage. It's just one of my all-time favorite wines. Hard to get outside of Spain, but like really solid, great expression of Rioja, good Tempranillo. The other one is a Terroir al Limite, Los Toses, which is a single vineyard Grenache and Carignan blend from the Priorat in Spain, I have a little project in the Priorat. And it's from a German winemaker, Dominik Uber. Also, the vines are about 75 years old. And this is just one of the rarest wines you can find. I think he makes, I don't know, I'd be very surprised if he makes more than 500 cases of this wine. Really hard to find. It's a 2018. And again, just one of my, two different regions, two old vineyards, but very different expressions. A Grenache, heavy Carignan blend, and then a Tempranillo blend as well. So tell me what you think. Should I start?
Yeah, start pouring.
All right, great. I'm gonna stand up for a second.
Sounds good, yeah.
All right.
Well, one of the things I love about crypto in general is that people can bring pretty much any passion they have in the world, whether it's financial inclusion or digital literacy or education or thinking about how to map better community alignment with incentives. And I'm so excited to learn more about how you've approached integrating technology into the wine world, one of the oldest industries on earth. And so this is going to be a really special podcast for us today. So, Dave, before we jump into tasting these wines, I think I would love to hear about dVIN. So this is your tech company focused on helping people gain access to high-grade investment wine. Talk to us a bit about this. Wine can kind of be intimidating to people, I think, especially younger generations that are sort of like, well, why are our parents so obsessed with these things? And what is the sort of significance of it? So maybe kind of demystify a little bit about the wine industry and then take us into dVIN.
Sure. So it's funny you mentioned earlier that like the culture of wine goes back a long way. It's true. A lot of people say that like winemaker is maybe the second oldest profession, but winemaking in general, one of the things that we say all the time is that the wine industry works the same way that it's worked for the last maybe 1,000 years. It's a very old industry. It's very traditional. It's one of the very few industries that hasn't consolidated in the last 30 years. Like most industries in the last 30 years, whether it's leisure, hotels, food, right? Yeah, there's just none. There's 30,000 independent winemakers around the world.
Very decentralized.
Yeah. And 10 million independent middlemen. And so, which makes sense, right? Like when you're going to buy a nice bottle of wine, you're not getting it at Target, right? You're getting it at a little corner wine shop that probably keeps their inventory, on Google Sheets if you're lucky, but probably on a clipboard. Right. Or maybe you're ordering it at a restaurant, but it's not like Chili's. You're ordering it at a little independently owned restaurant that, again, is probably keeping their inventory in a different in some way that isn't like vertically integrated, like most other industries. So what that means is that the industry is completely decentralized. It means there's no data. The winemakers never really know where their wines are, where they're being drank, where they're being or where they're being opened, when they're being opened. The industry it's a unique industry around the world, and I've been frustrated for the last 25 years that, like, I came from the tech world. Like, I kind of wanted things to work. I wanted there to be efficiencies. I wanted to have data, and I've been frustrated for 25 years that that data just doesn't exist. So when we first started hearing about the blockchain, what I say today is, if we wanted to solve the problems in the wine industry and the blockchain didn't exist, we'd have to invent it, because it's really the only technology that would allow business intelligence, allow data, allow fast and cheap transactions around the world. Like, you can talk about a million different ways that blockchain really helps the industry to move into the 21st century.
Very cool. Well, let's try the first sip of this thing
Sure.
here. I've been eager to try this. So this is the
Vineyard Tondonia.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about this vineyard.
So, 75-year-old vineyard in Rioja. This is like one of the like great old houses of Rioja. If you go and visit, it's it's a beautiful building. The vineyards are, the winery is I think it's a 150-year-old business. It's one of the oldest wineries in Europe, really. And the vineyards are about 70 years old, like old gnarly Tempranillo. And the cool thing about Viña Tondonia is they make the wine and then they age the wine in like 100-year-old oak barrel.
Whoa, cool. So there's this like historical character to it.
Yeah, and for a long time, right? So we're drinking the 2007, but that's because I think the most recent vintage that's been released is the 2011. Oh, wow. So like they wait 10, 12, sometimes 15 years before they release a vintage. Yeah. Which is super interesting. We can also talk a little bit about like how blockchain can help with selling futures and lots of other kind of interesting things. But yeah, this is one of those wineries that, like, it's a kind of a famous winery in Rioja. If you know, you know.
This is one of the things I think about wine that is so cool is that, all those restaurants you talked about and sort of the decentralized nature of it, part of it is like kind of about keeping the secrets. And in crypto land, exchanging secrets is one of the ways you basically move value around. And wine is also, I think, one of those kind of unusual things that, because getting it right doesn't mean getting it huge and scaled necessarily. These little restaurants and the wine owners take a huge amount of pride in their production and the craftsmanship of their goods and services, and then they want people to basically enjoy those things, in the right context. And it's one of the things I just love about wine, because it's so artisanal. But you are working on specifically investment grade wine. Help the people that are listening to our podcast kind of understand the difference, because in the wine land, you've got high quality, everyone agrees these wines are amazing. And then you've got wines that are very consumable. Sometimes here in the UK, they call them drinkable. Those might be like the meme coins of wine. And then you've got, the Bitcoins of wine. So talk us through a little bit about, what investment grade wine really means.
So the wine industry is actually huge. Last year, I think it was about $485 billion, which, just to put in perspective, if you took like the global film industry and the global television industry and the global publishing industry and the global music industry and the global video game industry, and you put them all together, they'd be smaller than the global wine industry.
I don't think people know that.
It's an enormous business, and which kind of makes sense, right? Like, if you're buying a couple of $20 bottles of wine a month, that's probably more than you're spending on a lot of your other, like, your Spotify subscription or whatever.
It's also really global. I mean, I think I read it's like basically there are grapes grown for production and consumption on every continent except Antarctica so far. And they've even sent bottles of wine into space to see how being in zero gravity ages wine. By the way, we learned it doesn't work as well.
So actually, interestingly, they both tried to age wine in space and age wine under the sea. Yep. A good friend of mine is a winemaker in Barcelona, and they age their wines for 3 years in the Mediterranean. So that's kind of cool. I'm also on the board of the most recent country to to plant wine grapes, which is Bhutan. So the Kingdom of Bhutan, about 7 years ago, planted the very first wine grapes ever. In fact, there's no word for grape in Bhutanese. So we just released the first wine from that kingdom. So you're right, cool. Wine's made all over the world. But investment grade wine is a little bit different, right? The vast majority of that $485 billion is $1 a liter table wine that like, especially in Europe, if you live in Europe, you're drinking at lunch or drinking at dinner, and there's a bottle on the table every day. Investment grade wine is different, right? So investment grade wine comes from, there's only about 10 or maybe 11 places in the world where you can make wine of, extraordinarily high quality. It is typically the scarcity is limited both physically by the environment, but also on a regulatory basis. So you can only make a certain amount of that wine. So there's real scarcity, real enforced scarcity. And it's wine, typically, when you say investment grade wine, it's wine that has a secondary market, right? There's so little of it that it has a market on the secondary. That's about maybe $30 billion a year. But because that wine sits for a long time before you drink it, it's about a $300 billion asset class. There's a lot of that wine out there in the world. The problem is that there's no liquidity. It's locked up because there's no global order book. There's no real, because it's not tokenized, right? Because it's all these little tiny markets everywhere, that there's no liquidity in that, and it's locked up. And that's one of the things we're trying to solve.
Yeah. So you described dVIN as building kind of like the Nasdaq for wine. So in practice, you talk about the sort of lack of liquidity, the decentralization. What's sort of the vision for dVIN then?
So what we do with dVIN is we've developed over the course of 3 years a protocol that we're basically working on the common protocol or the global protocol to put wine on the blockchain, the universal protocol. Now there's a couple of interesting things there. One is that protocol is a lot of folks think when they think of wine or when they think of some physical assets on the blockchain. They look at NFTs as being redeemable, right? Like you redeem your NFT in order to get that asset. We don't see it that way. We see the smart contract or what we call a digital cork as a deed of ownership over the bottle of wine. And so you have a deed of ownership, and then kind of the special sauce that we've included is the ability to track not just ownership of the bottle, but also custody of the bottle, right? Mm-hmm. So the initial custodian is the winemaker. Typically a trusted custodian is a bonded warehouse or an auction house, anywhere where you have a local authority for audit. So that wine is there. And then there's what we call the private custody, which is anywhere other than that, right? So as long as in your basement, in your basement, or even at a restaurant or a wine shop, right? Anywhere where it's outside of a controlled environment. That said, there's nearly $500 billion worth of wine that's in either the winery or a bonded warehouse. So taking that wine and tokenizing it allows for lots of different things. First of all, it allows for global liquidity, right? Like you can see where all the bottles are, you can see where they're traded, and it allows for you to have, it allows for demand and supply to meet one another, which is not currently. You've got the hub and spoke model, where you'll make the wine, you'll send the wine to 1,000 places in the world, and then you'll hope that supply and demand in all of those 1,000 places is matched. Right. That's never the case, right?
Yeah, there's preferences and then all kinds of things that go into what people want to drink.
By tokenizing and by abstracting custody and ownership, we allow for people to be able to, for that demand to be able to really find supply, and then the shipping happens later, right? So you can buy a wine, have it shipped to you later, and especially for investment grade wine, it really creates a much more balanced way of looking at the market, much more a lot more liquidity in the marketplace.
Thank you for explaining the digital cork NFT. That's pretty cool. So it's impossible to talk about how technology is impacting industries today without also talking a little bit about AI. And so you alluded to this earlier. You asked me, we'll let you know what Bacchus thinks about this wine. So Bacchus is an AI project. Talk to us a bit about that. We'd love to learn a little bit more.
Sure. So a couple years ago, when we first started doing this project, we were tokenizing each individual bottle by hand, because it's really important to get all the data, right? And wine has a lot of unstructured data. Every winery puts out the information about its wine in a different way, right? And there's lots of details about every bottle, and we wanted to make sure and get that right. So we hired a team of somms, and every time we were tokenizing bottles, that team of somms would go, and the first bottle took an hour, the second, eventually we got it down to like 10 minutes, which was pretty great. But still, it was a lot of research and a lot of like a team of somms that we tokenized 22,000 bottles one year. So it was a lot of individual work.
And so they're creating all the details about the character of the wine, the taste, the flavor profile, tannins, blah, blah, blah.
So we put all of that on chain, right? Like everything from the oak program, the location of the vineyard, the winery, the winemaker, alcohol levels, the bricks level at harvest, like all of the data goes on chain, because it's really important as again, the deed of ownership for a bottle. You kind of want to have all of those details. We knew that it wasn't sustainable for us to have a team of somms do it. So I hired, like 2.5 years ago, a data scientist to see if we could figure out a way to create an AI agent that would go and get that information for us. And it took about 9 months because, again, the information is unstructured and it's everywhere. But once we did it, we now had this agent that could tokenize bottles instantly. And what we figured out is that agent knew everything about every wine bottle ever created. And so we started looking at it, and we were like, okay, well, what's this good for? And so we started some kind of interesting little experiments. One was, you go to a restaurant, you could take a picture of the wine list, and it will tell you which wine is the best value on that wine list, which wine is the most highly rated, which wine is the most rare. So that was kind of cool. You can take a picture of any bottle, and it will tell you.
Where do I download this? How do I get this app? I need it right now.
It's app.dvin.ai. We literally launched it 2 days ago.
Oh, very cool. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. What it's really good at is providing investment advice. So it knows 30 years worth of pricing data for every wine ever. So it can tell you how to balance your portfolio. It can predict pricing in the future. As that wine ages, is it going to go up or down in value? When is the drinking window?
Very cool.
It looks at not only that, but it also looks at current trends. So it captures both quantitative and qualitative data. So it can tell you, hey, this wine there's a lot of interest in this wine in South Korea right now, which means that the value is going to go up. Or there's, the wines are falling off the wine list in Sao Paulo, so maybe the demand will be less for this particular wine. It's really good at predicting pricing.
So it's basically like a CFO and then wine expert and prediction market all wrapped up into an AI.
We call it the Bloomberg terminal for wine.
Okay. So I know that there's now a VIN token, VIN. So talk to us a bit about how that fits in the ecosystem. Is it utility? Is there some value from the protocol itself? How's it work?
So right now it's just utility. The way that the dVIN protocol makes money, the way that the dVIN protocol works, is it's free for any winemaker to tokenize their wines. And we've got lots and lots of winemakers. We've actually done 80 pilot programs with different winemakers all over the world. We've tokenized maybe 50,000 bottles. We're probably going to tokenize about $100 million worth of wine in the next 12 months. Wow. So free, easy for people to tokenize their wines.
Let's pause there real quick, because there'll be some listeners here that are probably really into wine. Some of them may know some friends and family that own vineyards or not. How do they actually do this? What's the way that someone would, basically, if you're a producer, you're into this, how do they get started?
Go to dvinlabs.com, fill out the contact form, and let us know. We do have an 8-month waiting list right now. Wow. for wineries. Yeah. Oh, okay. A lot of demand for wineries that want to have their wine tokenized. So, so how the protocol and how dVIN makes its money is every time a bottle of wine changes hands, it's 25 basis points gets paid out of the of the purchase price. So right now, that's getting converted into Vincoin. But over time, that'll be we think that over time we'll build a layer 2, and that'll be our network token, basically. So so basically everything that happens will happen on the layer 2. And for right now, it's investment grade wine. But when you think about it over time, there's something really interesting about the international trade, which is the average transaction that happens in the wine industry is a little tiny winemaker in France sells 5 cases to a little tiny importer in Norway. Right. And that has counterparty risk,
friction, time, all this stuff.
But also super expensive, right? Like that's a really expensive in FX, in settlement delays, in just wire transfer fees. So taking that and putting it on crypto rails, taking that the whole industry and putting it on crypto rails, is going to save everybody money.
Huge amounts. That's crazy. Okay, let's take a quick pause and switch over to this other wine. This is the one you mentioned. Really artisanal, very few, in one of the rarest bottles in Spain. I need to learn a little bit more about this wine, so start teaching.
This is one of my all-time favorites. You're gonna like this. So Grenache and Carignan, from a little tiny region called the Priorat. And history of the Priorat's it's really interesting. So in Spain, there's just south of Barcelona, there's a city called Tarragona. And Tarragona is famous because it's the only place outside of Rome that was ever the capital of the Roman Empire. So when Rome was sacked, they moved the capital to Tarragona in Spain. They built a Colosseum there. They built a Senate there.
And they brought some wine, I imagine.
And they started. Well, they didn't bring wine. They wanted to make wine, and it's actually unclear whether they moved the capital there because of the wine. But the Priorat is it's one of the oldest winemaking regions in the world. In my little project in the Priorat, there are Roman ruins. So if you go up into the vineyards, like there are tanks, like old Roman 2,000-year-old tanks where they used to make wine in the fields. It's very, very cool. It's a great region.
This checks out. So one of the things I looked up earlier today was like, which jurisdiction in the world consumes the most amount of wine? Now, jurisdictionally, very specifically, apparently it's the Vatican.
Yeah, sure.
So all of this checks out. That makes a lot of sense. All right. So this wine is made on these hillsides, small batch and family owned.
You got to come to the Priorat and visit.
You had me at Roman ruins, but
yeah, it's one of the most beautiful regions in the world. It's incredibly hilly, like lots and lots of steep slopes. One of the most difficult places to make wine in the world because the vineyards are so steep.
They make all these custom systems to get water and people, and they've got these rails that go up so that you can actually get the grapes off the hillsides. It looks treacherous.
It is. So everything is done by hand. Literally everything is done by hand. There's very few, there's a little tiny tractor that you can use that kind of goes between the vines, but like a lot of times they don't even do that. So it's a beautiful region, and it's great for these little tiny winemakers that make very small batches of fantastic wine.
How do you bridge this sort of future of data and winemaking? And have you found that it sounds like with an 8-month waiting list, you must have found something here. But how do you talk to these smaller producers about this type of technology and get them comfortable with it? Because in crypto land, for over 10 years, been explaining some of these concepts to everybody from retail adopters to institutional ones to policymakers. I've never really gone after the wine making community, so I'd love to hear a little bit about how you approach explaining these things to them. They must get the friction bit right away, because one of the most frustrating parts for them must be just actually moving their product and getting it to market when they put so much care in actually making it.
Look, there's a romantic answer to your question, which is, we always say that the wine industry has worked the same way for 1,000 years, and we're building the platform for the next 1,000 years, and that's a great romantic story. But at the end of the day, it's money. Yeah. They look at the business and they say, if I can find a global audience for my wine, if I can find true price transparency, find the actual price for my wine in the marketplace, if I can track my wines through this global supply chain and have real business intelligence, so I can have make better decisions with regard to marketing, messaging, packaging, product design, like all of those things that every other business kind of takes for granted, right? They use data to make decisions about their business in order to make their businesses more profitable and more efficient. The wine industry doesn't have that. So by tokenizing your wine, it just makes your businesses more efficient, more profitable.
Every big industry has issues with, fraud or counterfeit, products. And I think this is one of the things you guys can really sort of fix and work on. And so hitting it head on, like how does the digital cork NFT system sort of increase trust and authenticity in the wine purchasing process for both the consumers, but then ultimately for the producers as well?
Sure. Well, really simply, it's a deed of ownership, right? Deed of ownership that starts with the winemaker and travels through the life system of the bottle. So as long as every transaction happens on chain, it's very easy to track the wine all the way back to the winemaker. We say from grape to glass, right? So you can track your wine all the way back. And if you can track your wine all the way back, you can feel pretty confident that if it's not authentic, then Interpol knows who to talk to, right? So it's very, very difficult to do any kind of fraud or counterfeit at scale, right? You're still going to have the occasional bottle, sure, but like the biggest fraud problems in the wine industry, you look at Penfolds, will tell you that there's more fake Penfolds in China than there is real Penfolds in China. So by having an on-chain supply chain and tracking those bottles, again, all the way from the winery to the wine shop, that's going to really alleviate a ton of problems.
I'm so excited to hear about this real-world application of this because 10 years ago, I wrote a paper basically called "The Future is Decentralized," and one of the key use cases that we sort of envisioned was like a supply trade use case for crypto, which was from fishing to eating, across supply chains to wine, and it's just so neat to hear that it's finally coming to fruition and that there's such demand for it that it's going to take time to basically all come on chain, which is cool. So I've got some kind of crypto questions for you. It's not a quiz; it's more just to get into some funny ones. Sure. This will be a bit of a lightning round. But if Bitcoin was a wine, what wine would it be and why?
So for me, I think a lot of people would say Cabernet Sauvignon. Okay. But for me, I'd say Grenache. Right. Grenache is I think it's the most widely planted grape in the world. It's the most resilient grape in the world. It's planted in lots and lots of different places.
I like that character for it.
It's big and hardy. It actually works for a lot of things, right? Like you can have like a big meat dish with it. You can eat it with cheese, but you can also like a lot of more, a lot of Grenaches that are maybe made in a more delicate way, you can eat with paella, right? Like a lot of people will open a Grenache with fish or with seafood. So for me, it's versatile. It's big. For me, it's kind of the granddaddy of them all.
Got it. All right. The granddaddy of wines. You heard it here. Grenache is the Bitcoin of wine. All right. Can't talk about the market without also having your bear market wine. It's the one you're drinking when prices are down, you're having a little bit of a tough year, but you still need to have something. What's the bear market wine? What's the go-to?
It's always Albarino.
Albarino,
right?
Okay.
So again, and sorry, I'm talking about.
You
Spanish
are definitely
wines,
hitting all the Spanish wines.
But that's it, right? Like, so your Albarino is like crisp. It's it just hits all the notes for me, and like you can. When I think about bear market, I think about heat. Like it's always hot and sweaty, and so like I want to drink an Albarino because it's refreshing and it'll like chill me out.
Okay. All right. Then it's the bull run. What's the ultimate bull run wine? Things are going great. It's harvest season. Markets are going up and up. What's a good bull wine?
If you look at the last 30 years, it's got to be it. Well, actually, if you look at the last 30 years, you'd say Pinot Noir because that's really what's captured the bull market in wine. But it's champagne, right? Like,
right.
And we just launched the. So what we launched with Raoul is the 250K cuvee.
Yep.
Which is the bottle to open It's a grower champagne that we made a special label for, and it's the bottle to open
when Bitcoin hits
when
250.
Bitcoin gets 250K. Yeah. So it's a very limited edition. So yeah, the Bull Run wine has got to be champagne.
All right, now one more though. This, and it may have been the 250K one, but there's probably even something else out there. What's the ultimate hodl wine? You hold on for dear life, something that's so good, so rare, that you have to basically, kind of keep it for a long time, and you look forward to opening up in the future.
So Pinot Noir for sure, because those are the wines from Burgundy that you're gonna put in the you're gonna put down, and you're gonna lay those down for like 40 or 50 years. But actually, for people really in the know, it's a Sauterne or a Tokai, right? Your sweet wines, Tokai is from Hungary, Sauterne is from Bordeaux, but these are the elixir of the gods, right? These are your sweet wines, and so you can drink. I've been very fortunate to taste Chateau Yquem from 1870s, 1880s. So lives for 100 years in the bottle, and it's still amazingly fresh.
Well, thank you so much for coming here to teach us more about wine, but also the future of wine and markets and the tokenization of real-world assets. And one of the oldest assets in the world, I think, arguably is wine. And wine is, behaved both as something we consume, but also as a medium of exchange and a store of value. And I think it's such a great use case for crypto to kind of get its tentacles into this. So, Dave, it's been absolutely wonderful to have you here, and thank you for the midday pickup and for sharing these special bottles with us. To that, we'll say santé. Cheers, sir. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please remember to subscribe to our channel and leave a review if you enjoyed it. And until next time, my name's Nic Cary on behalf of the entire blockchain.com team. Cheers. Thanks.
Salut.